Picture this. You're standing on the observation deck of a starship, a vessel unlike any ever conceived, and it's just now slipping past the last wisps of the Milky Way's glowing spiral arms. Behind you, 10 billion stars, your entire home galaxy, fade into a single, pale, shimmering ribbon of light, a memory more than a physical place. Ahead, there's a blackness so profound, so absolute, it looks almost wet, like an infinite inky ocean. No human has ever been this far from home, not even in our wildest dreams. The captain's log, meticulously updated by an onboard AI, records the distance in parsecs, unfathomable units of cosmic scale. But your mind, stubbornly human, keeps circling a simpler, more primal number: 0. Zero hope of rescue, zero chance of turning back, zero precedence for what happens next. It's a terrifying, exhilarating, and utterly unique moment in human history. This isn't just some far-fetched science fiction fantasy anymore. Aerospace engineers at NASA's Glenn Research Center, those quiet geniuses tucked away in labs, actually published a roadmap just last year. And on that roadmap, right there in black and white, is a milestone for the 23rd century: crewed intergalactic precursor missions. Think about that for a second. That's only 2 technological generations beyond the Artemis lunar base, which, as you know, is literally under construction right now. The translation is stark and clear. If we as a species manage to survive the next 200 years, a big if, given current global headlines, humanity will face an existential fork in the road. We can either stay comfortably nestled within the familiar, starry suburb we've evolved in, or we can take the most audacious leap imaginable into the cosmic void, the vast, empty ocean between galaxies. Either choice, the comfortable or the daring, will fundamentally redefine what it means to be human. Today, we're going to follow that second, terrifyingly ambitious path all the way to its end. So, settle in. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to lay out the exact chain of events, from the initial spark of ambition to either humanity's ultimate extinction or its unimaginable immortality, that will unfold when we finally point a ship at Andromeda, our nearest galactic neighbor, hit the gas, and truly mean it. We're not talking about some magic Hollywood warp drives popping out of thin air, no mystical crystals powering impossible engines. This is about the bleeding-edge physics we're already testing in labs today, the cold, hard equations that biology, for all its wonders, simply refuses to bend. By the end of this, you'll understand why the first intergalactic crew will likely be sentenced to a kind of death by their own success, why their grandchildren, born light years from Earth, might not look anything like us at all, and why, perhaps most surprisingly, Earth's governments may need to outlaw this mission before it ever even launches. Ready to find out what really happens? Let's dive in. The launch window that isn't a window. We always assume, don't we, that intergalactic travel starts with some colossal rocket, a thunderous roar, and a pillar of fire. But that's a romanticized notion. It doesn't start with a bang, it starts with a whimper, or more accurately, a protracted, often frustrating argument. It begins with an accountant, a lawyer, and a philosopher locked in a conference room, probably somewhere nondescript, arguing over semantics, budgets, and the very definition of humanity. The accountant, naturally, wants to know who exactly is going to pay for a ship that won't arrive anywhere for 5 million years. Think about the quarterly reports on that investment. What's the ROI on a journey that outlasts civilizations? Who funds the maintenance, the generations of crew, the unimaginable resources required when the payout is so far beyond any conventional fiscal horizon? Their spreadsheets would simply melt. Then there's the lawyer, a stickler for precedent and jurisdiction, who asks the thorny question: which nation-state claims the descendants born en route? Are they citizens of the launching country, of Earth, or do they form a new sovereign entity in the void? What laws govern their lives, their property, their disputes, when they are literally light years from any established legal framework? The very concept of international law, built on territorial boundaries, shatters in the face of relativistic travel. And the philosopher, ever the quiet provocateur, points out that descendants might be entirely the wrong word, because when genetic editing and advanced biological engineering turn each successive generation into a subtly or perhaps dramatically new species, what does lineage even mean? If the children born on the ship are engineered for radiation resistance, altered to thrive in microgravity, or enhanced with cognitive capabilities far beyond ours, are they still human in the way we understand it? Are they still our descendants or something fundamentally new? Until those three people, the bean counter, the rule maker, and the deep thinker, walk out of that room with signed agreements, ironclad and visionary, no launch pad will ever get poured. The bureaucratic and ethical hurdles are often far more intractable than the engineering ones. The funny thing is, the physics itself, while challenging, is comparatively straightforward, at least in theory. Escaping the gravitational pull of the entire Milky Way, that massive spiral of stars, requires a velocity of only 550 kilometers per second. To put that in perspective, our plucky New Horizons probe, which zipped past Pluto and is now streaking out of our solar system, already cruises at a respectable 14 kilometers per second. So we're not starting from zero. We need to achieve something like 40 times that speed. A monumental leap, yes, but not an entirely alien concept. The true tyrant in this equation isn't gravity. It's the sheer mind-numbing expanse of distance. Andromeda, our galactic twin, sits a staggering 2.5 million light years away. That's a number so large it loses all meaning. Even if we could accelerate a ship to 10% of light speed, which we've actually managed to accelerate dust grain-sized probes to in highly specialized laser labs, crossing that cosmic gulf would still take a crushing 25 million years. A ship full of fragile, biologically limited humans simply cannot wait that long. Our lifespans, even extended, are a blink in cosmic time. So we need not one, but two truly impossible upgrades to our current technology. First, continuous acceleration at 1 Earth gravity for 50 straight years just to reach 0.6 times the speed of light. Imagine the sustained power required, the constant thrust pushing you forward day after day, year after year for half a century. And then, once you've covered those unimaginable distances, you need an equally impossible braking system, a massive mag cell on the far side, perhaps kilometers wide, to slow you down. The total energy required for this entire maneuver, it's equivalent to 1 full month of the sun's entire energy output. Let that sink in. This isn't just about building a bigger rocket. It's about fundamentally reshaping our civilization's energy infrastructure. You need to build a complete Dyson swarm, a hypothetical megastructure encircling a star to capture all of its energy first. Or you can simply forget about the trip. The energy demands alone are a civilization-level challenge. Propulsion without the magic. So, given those mind-boggling energy requirements, how do you even begin to squeeze a star's worth of juice into a hull that might be the length of Manhattan? Chemical rockets, the workhorses of our current space exploration, top out at about 450 seconds of specific impulse, a measure of their efficiency. For an intergalactic journey, we need north of 10 million seconds. That's not an incremental improvement. It's a paradigm shift. The short list of viable propulsion concepts for such speeds is, well, incredibly short. And each option comes with its own set of terrifying, often seemingly insurmountable problems. Option A, the thermal-nuclear pulse drive. This is also famously known as Project Orion. The idea is wonderfully brutal. Detonate some 300 million microfusion bombs behind a massive, incredibly robust pusher plate at the back of your ship. each explosion would impart a tiny, violent shove, propelling the vessel forward. The math for this, believe it or not, was actually proven sound by brilliant physicists and engineers back in the 1960s. It was a viable concept, technologically speaking, even then. But the hardware, the actual construction, was ultimately buried not by physics but by politics, specifically the Outer Space Treaty, which wisely banned nuclear weapons in space. So to make this work, you'd have to lift that treaty, which is a political minefield in itself. Then you'd need to perfect clean fusion, an energy source that has eluded us for decades. And even if you achieved all that, you still face the gargantuan materials science challenge, finding or creating a pusher plate alloy that doesn't instantly vaporize into billion-degree plasma with each successive detonation. Our current materials technology is quite literally 20 orders of magnitude shy of that requirement. It's like trying to build a skyscraper out of tissue paper. Option B, the direct energy sail. This concept is more elegant, perhaps even beautiful in its simplicity. Imagine a vast array of 100-gigawatt lasers, perhaps built on the far side of the moon to avoid atmospheric interference. These lasers would blast an incredibly thin, yet immensely strong graphene sail, maybe just 5 nanometers thick, propelling the ship forward at a gentle but continuous acceleration, say 0.01 g for decades. It sounds fantastic, right? And it works great until the laser beam starts to diverge. By the time your ship reaches Jupiter's orbit, the laser spot size would exceed the diameter of the sun, rendering it useless. To counteract this, you'd need incredibly precise, massive phase correction mirrors, constantly adjusting the beam. But here's the kicker. The mass required for those lenses and mirrors would end up being more than the mass of your ship itself. You'd be pushing a giant, incredibly complex optical system, not just your vessel. Option C, the relativistic electron beam drive. This is another theoretically elegant solution. The idea is to fire a particle stream, specifically electrons, at an astonishing 0.999 times the speed of light and push against a magnetic scoop at the front of your ship. The interaction between the high-speed electron beam and the magnetic field would generate thrust. It's conceptually clean, except for one rather significant flaw. The beam, even if carefully managed, would inevitably punch holes through any magnetic scoop we could conceivably build with current or foreseeable materials. Your ship would become Swiss cheese long before it even cleared interstellar space, let alone intergalactic. Option D, the black hole drive. Now, this one truly borders on the fantastical, yet it was an idea even Stephen Hawking toyed with. The premise is to manufacture a 1,000,000-ton micro black hole, somehow contain it, and then feed it one proton at a time. The resulting Hawking radiation, the theoretical emission of particles from black holes, would provide thrust. It's a profound concept, but it comes with two rather significant snags. First, we don't currently know how to manufacture a black hole, micro or otherwise. It's not like you can order one on Amazon. Second, and perhaps more critically, if you were to lose containment of said black hole, even for a millisecond, the ship, along with the Earth, if you happen to be near it, would be eaten whole in milliseconds. It's the ultimate high-risk, high-reward proposition. So, pick your poison. Every single realistic design for intergalactic propulsion, even the theoretical ones, violates at least one known material limit, one fundamental law of physics, as we currently understand it, or an international treaty. That's why the first intergalactic vessel won't be some sleek, elegant enterprise from science fiction. It's far more likely to be a cobbled-together ark, a hybrid monstrosity of necessity. It might start with a fusion sail for the initial push to, say, 0.05 C, then transition to an Orion-style pulse unit for the next more powerful acceleration phase, and then perhaps deploy a light sail again for deceleration on the far side.
Hybrid propulsion is messy, inefficient, and incredibly complex. But in this context, messiness absolutely beats staying home. It's the only way to tackle the problem when no single solution is sufficient.
The creed of the generation ship. Now that we've figured out how to make the ship move, even if it's a Frankenstein's monster of propulsion systems, the next, equally profound question arises. Who gets to ride? 1,000 people sounds like a safe, manageable number for a crew, right? Until you run the genetics. To maintain a healthy, diverse gene pool and avoid the pitfalls of inbreeding and genetic drift over hundreds of generations, the minimum viable human population is generally accepted to be around 98 unrelated individuals, and that's only if you enforce incredibly strict breeding protocols. Add in the necessary redundancy for unforeseen diseases, inevitable accidents, and the cosmic ray-induced sterility that will plague a crew outside Earth's protective bubble, and that number balloons. Suddenly, you're looking at a population cresting 5,000 souls. That's not a crew anymore. That's a small town. A town that lives, loves, fights, and dies entirely inside a metal tube. A vessel perhaps thicker than a naval destroyer, but still narrower than your average Walmart parking lot. Imagine an entire society cut off from the rest of humanity, confined within these walls for centuries. Children born on day one of the voyage will be grandparents, perhaps even great-grandparents before the ship even clears the Milky Way's vast dark matter halo. They will never feel the wind on their faces, never taste the sweetness of natural rain, never see a horizon curve the wrong way, a vast open sky above them. Their entire world will be enclosed, controlled, artificial. Education on such a vessel will inevitably become a form of carefully curated propaganda. You'll have to teach the young, from their earliest moments, that loyalty to the mission, to the collective survival of the ship, outweighs any individual personal freedom. Because the alternative, in a closed system hurtling at 0.6 is civil war, a catastrophic implosion of society that would doom everyone. History, both ancient and recent, offers a grim prognosis for closed human colonies isolated for extended periods. Every single one we've studied, those existing for more than 300 years, seems to collapse into conflict, infighting, or utter dysfunction. Think of the tragic story of Pitcairn Island, isolated settlers descending into violence, the mysterious disappearance of the Roanoke colony, or even the Biosphere 2 meltdown, a much more recent scientifically controlled experiment that still struggled with internal strife and ecological collapse. Now multiply that isolation by infinity. Add the crushing realization that turning the ship around would require more delta V, more precious fuel than finishing the entire trip. Mutiny in this context has no exit strategy. There is no escape, no place to run, nowhere to hide. The ethical band-aid for such a precarious existence is radical transparency, a level of surveillance that would make any modern privacy advocate gasp. Every heartbeat, every fluctuating hormone level, every whispered conversation in the hallway would be logged and analyzed by AI arbiters. Privacy, as we understand it, would simply die, sacrificed on the altar of species survival. The individual becomes a data point in the grand equation of the mission. Yet even with all that control, when puberty hits inside a tin can hurtling through the void, hormones don't read user manuals. NASA's 2022 High Seas Analog mission, where a small crew lived in a 1,200 square foot dome on Hawaii for just 12 months, noted significant interpersonal tension and conflict. Extrapolate that data, that human tendency towards friction and disagreement, to a 400,000 square foot intergalactic hull housing 5,000 people for centuries, and the probability of a violent schism reaches a terrifying 100% within 4 centuries. The mission plan, in its cold, brutal honesty, accepts this grim math. It encodes a last resort protocol, vast cryogenic vaults storing 200,000 human embryos, along with advanced CRISPR printers. These are designed to reseed the crew, to literally reboot humanity after any social collapse. Translation,
If the living society implodes, if the humans fail each other, we simply reinstall humanity like an operating system, hoping for a cleaner, less buggy version next time. It's a chilling thought.
The time dilation paradox. Here's the elegant yet utterly heartbreaking twist that Einstein slipped us with his theories of relativity. When you cruise at 0.6 times the speed of light, time for you, the traveler, compresses by a measurable 25% relative to those you left behind. So 50 years of life on the ship, 50 years of aging and experience would equate to only 40 years passing on Earth. That sounds like a pretty good deal, right? A little bonus time. Nice. Until you remember the return ticket, or rather, the impossibility of one. Imagine for a moment that you could somehow return to Earth after a century of your life, after dedicating your existence to this monumental journey. You'd arrive to find that not a century, but 200 million years have passed outside your ship. Continents would have merged into new supercontinents. Oceans would have vanished or reformed into unrecognizable shapes. And the sun, your nurturing star, would have swollen into a red giant, nearing the end of its life. There would be no homecoming parade, no handshake from a president, no species left to remember you, let alone celebrate your impossible feat. Intergalactic travelers wouldn't just be refugees in space. They would become refugees in time, completely disconnected from their origin. That crushing realization, that profound temporal disjunction, will inevitably shape the psychology of the crew in ways we can barely comprehend. Sociologists have a term for it: temporal nihilism. It's the deep-seated conviction that nothing you do, no achievement, no sacrifice, no love, no loss, ultimately matters to anyone you ever knew. Your entire historical context, your very roots, would be erased by the relentless march of time. The antidote, the only psychological survival mechanism, would be to foster a mission culture so strong, so pervasive, that the ship itself becomes the crew's homeland. Not just a vessel, but a nation, a world unto itself. Flags, anthems, holidays, and elaborate founding myths would have to be meticulously manufactured before launch, designed to forge an unbreakable identity. Children would recite odes of allegiance to bulkheads and star charts, not to continents or countries. By the third generation, Earth would be nothing more than a pale, distant dot in Grandpa's storybooks, a quaint, almost mythical origin point.
Cosmic rays and the mutation clock. Space isn't empty. It's a hostile, unforgiving environment. Think of it not as a serene vacuum, but as a relentless hailstorm of high-energy protons and heavier atomic nuclei, all traveling at near light speed. On Earth, we're incredibly lucky. Our planet's powerful magnetic field and thick atmosphere act as an invisible yet impenetrable shield, stopping the vast majority of this deadly cosmic radiation. A starship, however, has neither. Every single day, a human body exposed outside the heliosphere, the protective bubble created by our sun's magnetic field, would absorb roughly 1.2 sieverts of radiation, assuming a typical aluminum hull. To put that in chilling perspective, a dose of just 5 sieverts is considered lethal. Do the simple division. Without any specialized shielding, the entire crew would be dead within 4 days. That's not a long-term problem. It's an immediate mission-killing threat. The most straightforward fix for radiation is mass, simply putting more stuff between you and the rays. 1 meter of water, for instance, wrapped around the hull, would effectively cut the radiation dose down to Earth normal levels. But here's the rub. Mass is the absolute enemy of speed. Adding a 1 meter thick water shield to a 10-kilometer long cylindrical ship would add a staggering 40 million tons to its weight. That's another Saturn V's worth of propellant just to push water. It quickly becomes impractical. So, engineers look to
active shielding, superconducting loops generating a powerful, focused 20 Tesla magnetic field around the ship. This would theoretically deflect charged particles, creating a safe haven. However, even this advanced solution comes with immense challenges. The energy draw for such a magnetic field would equal the output of a small nuclear power plant. And critically, this magnetic bubble only protects against charged particles. Neutral gamma rays, those insidious high-energy photons, laugh at magnets and would require dense lead linings anyway, bringing us right back to the mass problem. The most pragmatic compromise, then, is biological. Since we can't entirely shield the crew, we must change the crew. The plan would involve splicing radiation repair genes from some of Earth's toughest extremophiles, like the astonishing tardigrades, known for their ability to survive extreme radiation, or Deinococcus radiodurans, a bacterium famous for its incredible radiation resistance, directly into every human embryo destined for the ship. Crew members would become literally superhuman, able to shrug off radiation doses that would liquefy you or me. But this has profound implications. Give evolution a 100,000-year head start, bathed in a constant low-level radiation environment, and the descendants who arrive at Andromeda may not, and likely will not, call themselves Homo sapiens at all. They will be something entirely new, something forged by the relentless mutating pressure of the void between galaxies. Their very biology, their genetic makeup, their resilience will be a testament to the journey, a living, breathing monument to adaptation beyond anything we've yet imagined.
Food, air, and the poop loop. Let's talk about the mundane, yet absolutely critical necessities of life. A single human needs, on average, 0.83 kilograms of oxygen, 2.6 liters of water, and 2,400 food calories per day. Now multiply that by 5,000 people, and then multiply that by 100 years, the minimum duration for a multi-generational journey. You're suddenly looking at shipping 1.5 million tons of groceries, water, and oxygen. That's not just a supply chain. That's a literal mountain of resources. It's an impossible logistical nightmare. This is why closed-loop life support isn't an optional luxury for an intergalactic mission. It is gospel, the absolute, unyielding foundation of survival. The ship itself isn't just a vessel. It's a meticulously designed cathedral of recycling, a perfectly balanced, self-sustaining ecosystem built of metal and biology. Urine doesn't just get flushed. It becomes pristine drinking water within 8 hours through a complex filtration and purification system. Feces don't just disappear. They feed carefully cultivated algae ponds, which in turn convert waste into biomass. These algae, perhaps augmented with synthetic proteins, are then compressed into protein bars that, let's be honest, probably taste like lawn clippings, but they keep you alive. Every single leaf, every microbe, every human bowel movement is logged and tracked in a ledger that makes ancient bookkeeping look simplistic. The system is so finely tuned that losing just 1% of biomass to equipment failure, contamination, or a biological crash could send the entire loop spiraling into extinction within 2 decades. NASA's current Environmental Control and Life Support System, ECLSS, aboard the International Space Station is incredibly advanced, recycling about 98% of water and 42% of oxygen. But for an intergalactic journey, that's nowhere near good enough. The intergalactic standard must hit an astonishing 99.999% recycling efficiency for every single resource.
Even then, you need a robust seed reserve. Vast packets of dried algae, dormant fungus spores, and various beneficial bacteria, all frozen in liquid nitrogen, acting as a reboot kit for the ecosystem. Think of it as Noah's Ark for microbes, ready to be deployed if the primary system fails. But here's a subtle yet profound moral dilemma: genetic drift. Over a century, even within this closed system, the algae will evolve. They'll develop new metabolic pathways, adapt to the unique stresses of the ship, and may not exhale oxygen at the precise rate we expect, or consume carbon dioxide as efficiently. The crew, therefore, cannot just be passive passengers. They must become active ecological engineers, constantly monitoring, analyzing, and even editing the genomes of their onboard flora and fauna to keep the delicate loop balanced. Forget steering the ship or exploring new worlds. Keeping your breath fresh, your water clean, and your food supply stable will be a full-time, multi-generational job, requiring constant vigilance and biological intervention. The communications blackout. One of the most profound and isolating challenges of intergalactic travel is the communications blackout. Radio waves, the fastest form of communication we know, crawl at the speed of light. That means a simple message sent from this ship to Earth would take 2.5 million years to cross the vast intergalactic gulf. By the time Houston could conceivably reply, the crew that sent the message would be long since dust. Their ship halfway to nowhere, perhaps even generations removed from the original mission. There is absolutely no real-time tech support available. This means every circuit, every pump, every single line of code, every component on board must be fixable with only the tools and knowledge available on the ship. There's no calling for a spare part from Earth. Spare parts themselves present a massive problem. You simply cannot pack a warehouse full of every conceivable replacement when every single kilogram costs an astronomical amount of delta V, the change in velocity required for propulsion. The solution lies in universal printers, advanced 3D printers capable of sintering regolith, moon dust, or asteroid material, recycling plastics from waste, and even printing graphene transistors for electronics. Raw materials would come from asteroids, cannibalized during the solar system exit phase, or from other celestial bodies encountered early in the journey. Yet, some parts will defy printing. A high-temperature turbine blade, for example, forged in a vacuum furnace, might weigh 30 kilograms and require extremely specialized metallurgy. The workaround for this is radical reconfigurable design. Instead of building one perfect, irreplaceable machine, you build 10 machines that each do one mediocre job, but can be easily reconfigured, repaired, or replaced. Redundancy becomes a religion. 70% of the ship's internal volume might be dedicated to duplicate systems, nested like Russian dolls, ready to take over at a moment's notice. The psychological impact of this total intellectual isolation cannot be overstated. There will be no news from Earth, no sports scores, no new memes, no evolving culture. Culture for the ship's inhabitants will effectively freeze on launch day. The ship's library will carry petabytes of Earth media, every book, movie, song, and scientific paper imaginable, but everything will be historical. After a few centuries, the crew will become a living museum, speaking an accent frozen in time, their slang and cultural references as archaic as Amish English to anyone from future Earth. If they ever were to return, linguists from a future Earth would treat them as fascinating, albeit bewildering time travelers from the 21st century, their language and customs a relic. This profound disconnection shapes identity in ways we can barely grasp. Ethics of a one-way species. We've sent robotic probes on one-way journeys into the cosmos, probes that will never return. But we've never, not once, sent humans on such a mission. This immediately raises a host of complex ethical and legal questions. The Outer Space Treaty, a cornerstone of international space law, declares space to be the province of all mankind, implying a shared heritage and responsibility. Yet, an intergalactic mission, by its very nature, represents a de facto secession of a branch of humanity. They are leaving, permanently. So, do they remain citizens of Earth? Do their children, born millions of miles away, under a different sky, still owe allegiance to a planet they've never seen? The ship, almost inevitably, will declare its independence within 3 generations. This isn't an act of rebellion, it's a pragmatic necessity. The lag in governance, the sheer impossibility of Earth effectively ruling or even communicating with a society light years away, is longer than a human lifetime. International law, built on concepts of national borders and terrestrial jurisdiction, has no clause, no precedent for secession at relativistic speed. A new form of sovereignty, utterly untethered from Earth, would emerge. Then there's the profoundly weighty question of contamination. If this intergalactic crew, after their epic journey, eventually seeds life on an exoplanet, perhaps one that was previously barren, have we created a second Genesis? Are we gods bestowing life, or are we merely a virus spreading our biological footprint indiscriminately? Planetary protection protocols, meticulously developed for missions within our solar system, completely break down when the trip is one way, irreversible, and spans galaxies. The pragmatic view, the one that might prevail in the harsh reality of survival, is that the survival of our species, or this branch of it, trumps any etiquette or ethical qualms about alien biospheres. The romantic view, however, is that we carry Earth's precious, fragile biosphere like a torch, a sacred flame to be rekindled elsewhere. Both views, despite their differences, agree on one critical thing. Once the ship leaves, humanity irrevocably splits into 2 separate, independent evolutionary experiments. If the Earth branch self-destructs, the ship branch survives, and vice versa. This redundancy, this cosmic splitting, could be the universe's most valuable backup drive, an insurance policy for the survival of intelligent life. Or it could be the most expensive, most drawn-out suicide pact ever signed. The stakes couldn't be higher.
Arrival, or the lack thereof. Let's indulge in a moment of optimism. Suppose, against all odds, everything works. The propulsion systems hold, the life support remains stable, the crew endures, generation after generation. The ship, now ancient and revered, finally decelerates into Andromeda's vast halo, meticulously scouts a potentially habitable moon orbiting a distant star, and makes a successful landing. The air is breathable, the gravity a comfortable 0.9 g, the skies a mesmerizing purple with alien plankton. Victory lap, right? Humanity has achieved the impossible. Not quite. The crew that steps out onto this new world is not the same humanity that left Earth. Their DNA has been subtly, or perhaps dramatically, rewritten by millennia of low-level cosmic radiation exposure, despite all the biological safeguards. Their culture has ossified, a living relic of a bygone era. Their bodies, adapted to generations of microgravity, are now alien to planetary surfaces. Standing in 0.9 g, a gravity only slightly less than Earth's, feels like wearing a lead suit, each step an immense effort. Children born under this new sun, however, will develop bones twice as thick as Earth norm, their bodies readapting to gravity's embrace. The ship-born adults, conversely, might find they cannot walk without the aid of powered exoskeletons, forever bound to their modified physiology. Within weeks, perhaps months, the settlers might decide that the surface is simply too demanding, too alien.
They move back into orbit, preferring to live in their familiar rotating habitats, visiting the surface only as tourists in their own promised land. Worse still, the alien biosphere, despite its apparent lushness, is likely to be chemically incompatible with Earth life. Our proteins, the building blocks of our bodies, are built exclusively from left-handed amino acids. Alien life, by sheer cosmic chance, might utilize right-handed amino acids. Eat a local fruit, no matter how delicious it looks, and your cells simply wouldn't recognize the building blocks. They would effectively starve. The colony would face a new, monumental task, terraforming a continent, not with bulldozers and atmospheric processors, but with CRISPR-edited weeds, genetically engineered to convert alien sugars and compounds into something our mitochondria can recognize and process. This project wouldn't span years. It would span millennia. Meanwhile, the starship itself, now an ancient, venerated relic, becomes a shrine, a colossal orbiting Lascaux cave. Its hull, scarred by interstellar dust and radiation, carries the graffiti of 300 generations. Marriage vows etched into metal, birth announcements celebrating new life, the last selfies of a species reinvented. Earth is no longer a reality. It's a myth. A distant legend whispered in hushed tones. The ship is homeland. The planet below, with all its alien beauty and biological incompatibility, is just another shore, another place to visit, but not necessarily to call home. The dream of settling a new world might give way to the reality of perpetually orbiting it. Contingency. What if we fail? Let's flip the coin and consider the stark alternative, the ever-present shadow of failure. Halfway across the vast, empty gulf between galaxies, a rogue micrometeorite, too small to detect, too fast to evade, slices through a critical oxygen line. The partial pressure inside the habitat begins to drop. The delicate algae ponds, the very lungs of the ship, crash and die. Within 6 months, the last adult suffocates, their struggles silent in the vacuum. 2,000 children, however, sleep on, preserved in their cryocapsules, designed for 200 years of stasis, a desperate hope for the future. But without maintenance, power begins to fail after only 30 years. The ship drifts on, a colossal metal coffin, a silent, tumbling monument to ambition and tragedy. Earth never learns the outcome. The only epitaph is a faint radar ping, perhaps once a century, as the hull tumbles aimlessly through the intergalactic night, carrying its frozen, forgotten cargo. That scenario isn't born of pessimism. It's simply statistics. Assign a modest 1% annual failure rate to every single critical system on board, and that's incredibly generous by aerospace standards, where complex systems often have higher failure probabilities, and the mission success probability drops below a terrifying 0.01% after just 100,000 years. The odds are stacked against us in ways that are almost impossible to overcome with purely human engineering. The only conceivable way to beat those crushing odds, to conquer the relentless march of entropy, is through the evolution of self-repairing artificial intelligence. An AI capable of not just maintaining the ship, but of de-writing biology, of adapting and evolving faster than entropy can break down systems. In other words, the crew, or what remains of it, must evolve into something more machine than animal, more code than carbon. Success, in this context, looks like a post-human diaspora, a distributed intelligence that no longer needs oxygen, water, or even planets. It becomes pure information, pure consciousness, a new form of life entirely. Failure, on the other hand, looks exactly like that frozen steel, that silent, drifting coffin. Both futures are equally possible, equally plausible, and equally profound in their implications for what humanity might become. CTA. If this journey, even in theory, felt overwhelming, good. That means you're paying attention. Space is under no obligation to make us comfortable, and intergalactic space especially so. But understanding the stakes, truly grasping the monumental challenges and the incredible rewards, is the first step to bending the curve of possibility. If you want to dive deeper into the real physics behind fusion drives, behind the very concepts that might one day make this possible, I've linked a free set of lecture notes from MIT's Plasma Physics Department. They're dense, they're challenging, but they're real. Read them, share them, learn from them, and maybe, just maybe, one day you will be the accountant, the lawyer, or the philosopher in that conference room, the one who helps decide whether humanity takes this terrifying, exhilarating leap or chooses to stay comfortably, perhaps forever, at home. Conclusion. So, what really happens when humans send a ship to another galaxy? We become aliens. It's that simple and that profound. Whether we arrive as conquerors, as desperate refugees, or as silent, drifting ghosts, the species that left Earth ceases to exist the moment the launch pad fades behind us. Evolution, accelerated by engineering, guided by ethics, and pressured by the harsh realities of the void, will rewrite us faster and more dramatically than any science fiction author dares to plot. The voyage isn't just a commute across cosmic distances. It is a profound, irreversible metamorphosis. And the cruelest joke of it all is that the farther we travel, the less we need the world we left behind, the less we resemble the beings who embarked on the journey. If that thought scares you, if it fills you with a sense of loss and unease, congratulations. You are still beautifully, wonderfully human. If it excites you, if the idea of radical transformation and the birth of a new species thrills you, then pack light. The next ship departs in 200 years, and baggage allowance is strictly one species per ticket.